My name is Lucy Elliott. I'm 72 years old. And yesterday I overheard my daughter say something that shattered whatever was left of my heart. I was standing at the gate to her courtyard, my hand already on the latch, when I heard her voice carry across the afternoon air. Clear as a bell. Cold as ice. She's too old to still be alive. My daughter. My only child. The baby I held against my chest for endless nights when she had colic. The girl I taught to read, to ride a bike, to stand up for herself. She said those words. About me. And then came the laughter. Not just hers. Multiple voices, echoing across that sunny courtyard like I was the punchline to some cruel joke I didn't even know I was part of. I felt the nausea hit me first. That sick, twisting feeling in your gut when you realize something fundamental has shifted beneath your feet. My hand gripped the gate so hard I could feel the metal digging into my palm. I wanted to vomit. I wanted to scream. I wanted to turn around and run back to my car and pretend I never came, never heard, never knew how my own child really saw me. But I didn't run. You know what I did? I forced myself to breathe. 1 breath. 2 breaths. 3. I straightened my back, fixed my face into something resembling a smile, and I walked inside. I walked right into that courtyard full of people who thought I was a burden, a joke, someone who had overstayed her welcome in this world. Before I tell you what happened next, I need you to do something for me. Please like this video. Subscribe to this channel. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from, because I need to know I'm not alone in this. I need to know that somewhere out there, someone understands what it feels like to be erased by the person you gave everything to create. The courtyard was beautiful that afternoon. I'll give her that much. My daughter knows how to throw a party. The sun was pouring down like liquid gold, warming the brick pavers and making everything glow. There were tables set up with crisp white linens, platters of food that probably cost more than I spend on groceries in a month. Music playing from speakers hidden somewhere in the garden. Flowers everywhere. Her in-laws were there, her husband's entire family, cousins I'd never met, friends whose names I couldn't remember. It was the kind of gathering I used to dream about when she was little. When it was just the two of us in that cramped apartment, eating boxed macaroni for the 3rd night in a row because that's all I could afford. I used to imagine her grown up, successful, surrounded by people who loved her, hosting beautiful parties in a beautiful home. I imagined I'd be there too, right beside her, basking in the pride of having raised such an incredible woman. But as I walked through that gate, not a single person looked up. Not one. I moved through them like a ghost, like I was already dead. Maybe to them, I was. My daughter saw me though. Oh yes, she saw me. And the look on her face, it wasn't warm. It wasn't "oh good, Mom's here." It was annoying. Pure, undisguised annoyance. Like I'd shown up uninvited to something that was none of my business. I heard the whispers start almost immediately. Her mother-in-law, a woman who's never liked me because I'm not from their kind of money, their kind of family, leaned toward someone and said something about still getting around with a tone that made it sound like a disease. Someone else mentioned my age. Another voice called me frail. They were talking about me like I was a piece of furniture that didn't match the decor anymore. And then I heard it. My daughter's voice again, this time directed at her husband. He was standing near the drinks table, and she walked over to him, glanced back at me with that look I knew so well from her teenage years when I embarrassed her just by existing, and she said, "Did you see her? She still thinks she belongs here." They laughed. Both of them. And the people around them laughed too. Like it was funny. Like I was funny. This pathetic old woman who didn't understand that she'd been written out of the story, who kept showing up where she wasn't wanted, clinging to relevance she no longer had. I smiled. I kept that smile plastered on my face like a mask, and I walked over to the corner of one of the tables and sat down. Alone. Nobody offered me food. Nobody asked how I was doing. Nobody said, "Lucy, it's so good to see you," or, "Can I get you something to drink?" Nothing. I sat there, hands folded in my lap, watching my daughter laugh and socialize and play the perfect host to everyone except me. And that's when it hit me. Really hit me. I wasn't family anymore. I was a burden. An obligation she couldn't quite figure out how to shed. I was the embarrassing old mother who reminded her of a past she'd rather forget. The past where she didn't have money or status or in-laws with country club memberships. I was proof that she came from nothing, from a single mother who worked 3 jobs just to keep the lights on. I sat there, and my mind started to drift. It does that now, more than I'd like to admit. I drifted back to the nights when she was small. Really small. 3, maybe 4 years old. She'd had nightmares for months after her father left us. Every single night, she'd wake up screaming, terrified that I'd disappear too. And every single night, I'd climb into her tiny toddler bed, hold her against my chest, and sing to her until she fell back asleep. I was exhausted. I had to be at work by 6 in the morning. But I never complained. I never made her feel like she was too much. I remembered the time she got sick with pneumonia when she was 7. The hospital bills nearly buried us. I took on extra shifts at the diner, worked myself until I was running on nothing but coffee and fear. I slept in a chair next to her hospital bed for 5 days straight. The nurses had to force me to go home and shower. When she finally came home, weak and pale, I carried her everywhere. I made her homemade soup. I read to her for hours. I did everything. I remembered when she was 15 and her first boyfriend broke her heart. She cried on my shoulder for 3 hours straight. 3 hours. I held her and told her she was beautiful, that she was worth more than any boy could ever understand, that this pain would pass and she'd find real love someday. I promised her that everything would be okay. I remembered when she got pregnant with my grandson. She was terrified. Her husband was stressed about money. They weren't sure they were ready. And who did she call? Me. In the middle of the night, sobbing, asking if she was going to be a good mother. And I drove across town at 2 in the morning to hold her, just like I did when she was little, and I told her yes. Yes, you're going to be an amazing mother. I'll help you. We'll get through this together. But none of that mattered now, did it? None of those years, those sacrifices, those moments when I was everything she needed, none of it meant anything. Because here I was, sitting alone at a table in her courtyard, treated like trash. Like something disposable. Like someone who was too old to still be alive. The humiliation burned. But underneath that burning, something else was happening. Something was clarifying. Crystallizing. I could feel it settling in my chest like a cold, hard truth. This wasn't just a bad day. This wasn't just a thoughtless comment. This was the end. The end of my place in her life. And the most painful part? She didn't even know she'd ended it. She thought this was normal. She thought this was fine. She thought I'd just keep showing up, keep smiling, keep accepting whatever scraps of acknowledgement she decided to throw my way. But sitting there, listening to her laugh with people who weren't me, watching her move through her life like I wasn't even in the room, I realized something. I realized I had a choice. I could keep doing this. Keep showing up. Keep pretending that these crumbs were enough. Keep dying a little more each time I was ignored, dismissed, mocked. Or I could do something else. Something I'd never really considered before. I could leave. Not just leave the party. Leave her. Completely. Erase myself from her life before she finished erasing me from hers. Take back whatever dignity I had left and walk away with it. Not out of revenge. Not to punish her. But because I deserved better than this. Even at 72. Even at too old to still be alive. I deserved better. I stood up from that table. I needed to think. I needed space. So I excused myself, though nobody was paying attention anyway, and I said I needed to use the bathroom. I walked into her house, through the beautiful kitchen with its marble countertops and professional-grade appliances, past the family photos on the wall where I appeared less and less the more recent they got, and I sat down at her dining table. The music from outside filtered through the windows. Every burst of laughter felt like a knife. I could hear her voice, animated and happy, living her best life. Without me. Despite me. Maybe even better because I was out of the way, tucked inside where I couldn't embarrass her. I felt a tear slide down my cheek. Just one. I wiped it away quickly, like I've always done. Lucy Elliott doesn't cry. Lucy Elliott pushes through. Lucy Elliott survives. That's what I've always done. Survived. But why? For what? To end up here? To end up erased? And then I felt something shift. My spine straightened. My jaw set. That tear was the last one I was going to shed over this. Over her. I wasn't going to beg for love from someone who clearly didn't have any to give me. I wasn't going to keep trying to earn a place in her life when she'd already decided I didn't have one. I whispered it out loud, right there at her dining table. I will erase her. From everything. Not because I hated her. God, I wished I could hate her. Hate would be easier. Hate would be clean. But I didn't hate her. I just didn't recognize her anymore. And I refused to keep degrading myself for someone who saw me as nothing more than an inconvenient relic of her past. This wasn't about revenge. This was about self-respect. This was about remembering that I'm Lucy Elliott. I survived an abusive marriage. I raised a child alone. I worked myself to the bone to give her opportunities one never had. I taught myself to be strong when everything in me wanted to crumble. And I'd be damned if I was going to spend my final years begging for scraps from someone I gave everything to. I stood up from that table, smoothed down my dress, and walked back through the house. Back through the courtyard. People were still laughing, still eating, still celebrating. I walked past my daughter. She was talking to her mother-in-law, both of them holding wine glasses, both of them looking so elegant and put together. She glanced at me for a fraction of a second. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't ask if I was okay. Just glanced, and then returned to her conversation. I walked out that gate. Got in my car. Drove home. And for the first time in I don't know how long, I felt calm. Not happy. Not at peace exactly. But calm. Clear. Like I'd finally given myself permission to stop pretending. That night, I barely slept. But it wasn't the bad kind of sleeplessness. It was the kind where your mind is racing with purpose, with planning. I knew what I had to do. I knew what I needed to do. And when the sun came up the next morning, I got up with it. I made myself a single cup of coffee. Not a pot like I used to make when I was hoping she'd drop by, or when I was preparing for grandkids who rarely visited. Just one cup. For me. I sat at my kitchen table and I started pulling out documents. Documents I hadn't looked at in years because I'd been so sure of how things would go. So sure that family meant something. That blood meant something. My will. My medical directives. Insurance policies. Bank account information. Property documents. Passwords to everything. Emergency contact forms from doctors' offices. Power of attorney papers. Beneficiary designations. All of it. Every single piece of paper that had my daughter's name on it, that gave her access to my life, to my death, to everything I'd worked for. And her name was everywhere. Everywhere. She was listed as my primary beneficiary. She had power of attorney in case I became incapacitated. She was my emergency contact. She was set to inherit my house, my savings, my life insurance, everything. I'd set it up that way years ago because I thought that's what mothers did. You leave everything to your children. You make sure they're taken care of. You put them first, always. But looking at all those documents spread across my table, I didn't feel love. I felt anger. Not the hot, explosive kind. The heavy kind. The old kind. The kind that's been building for years without you even realizing it, and then one day it's just there, solid and undeniable, and you can't ignore it anymore. She was going to inherit everything I'd worked for. Everything I'd sacrificed for. And she thought I was too old to still be alive. She laughed about it. To her friends. Her family. People who already looked down on me. Well, that was going to change. I spent the morning organizing everything. Making lists. Checking account numbers. Finding phone numbers for my bank, my insurance company, my financial advisor. And then I called my attorney. David. I'd used him for years, for the basics. He'd helped me with the will after my divorce was finalized, helped me set up the power of attorney when I started getting older and wanted to make sure things were in order. Lucy, he said when I called. It's been a while. How are you? I need to see you, I said. Today if possible. I need to make some changes. Significant changes. There must have been something in my voice because he didn't ask questions. He just said, I can fit you in at 2 o'clock. I was there at 1:45. David's office smelled like leather and old books, comforting in a weird way. He poured me water, sat down across from me, and pulled out my file. It was thicker than I remembered. Evidence of a life lived, I supposed. Evidence of plans made. What can I do for you, Lucy? He asked. I need to remove my daughter from everything, I said. Plain. Simple. No emotion. The will. Power of attorney. Beneficiary designations. All of it. I want her name gone. David set down his pen. He looked at me for a long moment, and I could see him trying to decide whether to ask why. Finally, he said, that's a significant change. Can I ask what's prompting this? She made it clear I'm not part of her life anymore, I said. I'm just making the legal documents reflect that reality. He nodded slowly. All right. Let's go through this step by step. Currently, your daughter is listed as the primary beneficiary on your will. She has durable power of attorney for healthcare and financial decisions. She's the beneficiary on your life insurance policy, your retirement accounts, and she's named as executor of your estate. You want all of that changed? All of it, I confirmed. I want her to have nothing. I want her to have no say in my life, my health, my death, or anything I leave behind. Do you have someone else you'd like to name? Another family member? A trusted friend? I thought about that. Did I? My grandson maybe, but he was young, and his mother would have access to everything through him. No. That wouldn't work. I want to create a living trust, I said. I want everything to go to somewhere meaningful. A women's shelter maybe. Or a scholarship fund. Something that actually helps people who need it. David wrote notes, nodding. We can absolutely do that. I can help you establish a charitable trust. As for power of attorney, I'd recommend naming a neutral third party. A professional fiduciary perhaps, someone who has a legal obligation to act in your best interests. Yes, I said. That. Do that. I want someone whose job it is to advocate for me. Not someone who's counting down the days until I die so they can cash in. If David was shocked by my bitterness, he didn't show it. He just kept writing, kept nodding, kept being professional. I'll draw up the papers. This will take about a week to prepare everything properly. We'll need to have everything notarized, and I'll want you to initial each page so there's no question about your intent or capacity. Good, I said. I want it airtight. I don't want her to be able to contest anything. Lucy, David said gently, are you sure about this? I'm not trying to talk you out of it. It's your life and your assets. But I've seen family disputes over estates get very ugly. Once this is done, it's difficult to undo the damage to relationships. I laughed. Actually laughed. It sounded bitter even to my own ears. The damage is already done, David. I'm just protecting myself from further damage. He nodded. Then we'll make it happen. Over the next week, I was busier than I'd been in years. I wasn't just changing legal documents. I was reclaiming my entire life. I started with the practical things. I called a locksmith and had all my locks changed. Every single one. The front door, the back door, the side gate. My daughter had keys to all of them. Had let herself in whenever she felt like it, which wasn't often, but still. Those were my doors. My home. She didn't get access anymore. I went to the bank and closed our joint checking account, the one I'd set up years ago, for emergencies. She'd used it twice in 5 years, both times without asking, both times for things that weren't emergencies. I opened a new account in my name only. Transferred everything over. Changed all my automatic payments. I went through every medical facility I'd been to and updated my emergency contact information. Removed her name. Added my doctor's office as the primary contact instead. It felt strange, listing a medical office instead of family, but at least I knew they'd actually answer when called. I registered for a P.O. box. Started having my mail sent there. I didn't want her showing up and rifling through my mail, trying to figure out what I'd done, what I was doing. My business was my business now. And then I started going through my house. Really going through it. I'd lived there for 30 years. 30 years of accumulation. 30 years of memories, some good, most complicated. I started separating things into categories. Things that were mine, that made me happy, that I wanted to keep. And things that were tied to pain, to her, to disappointment. Photos where she looked at the camera and I was out of focus in the background. Packed away. Gifts she'd given me over the years, generic things clearly picked up last minute at some department store. Donated. Cards with messages that said love you, Mom, but felt hollow when I read them now, knowing what she really thought of me. Thrown away. I kept the photos from when she was little. When she still looked at me like I hung the moon. When her love was uncomplicated and pure. Those I could keep. Those were different. That was a different child. A child who hadn't learned yet that her mother was something to be ashamed of. My house started to feel different. Lighter. Like I was shedding weight I didn't even know I'd been carrying. Every bag I took to Goodwill, every box I put in the trash, I felt a little more like myself. Not the self who was Lucy Elliott, mother of. Just Lucy Elliott. A woman who existed on her own terms. I started looking at apartments. Smaller places. One-bedroom places with good light and low maintenance. I didn't need this big house anymore. I didn't need space for family gatherings that never happened. I didn't need a guest room for a daughter who never stayed over. I needed something that was mine, manageable, comfortable. Something I could afford on my fixed income without stress. Something that felt like a new beginning instead of a monument to a family that didn't exist the way I'd thought it did. I found a place in a quiet building on the other side of town. Third floor, lots of windows, a small balcony where I could put some plants. It was perfect. Clean. Simple. Mine. I put down a deposit and set a move-in date for the end of the month. And through all of this, my phone sat silent. My daughter hadn't called. Hadn't texted. Hadn't noticed that anything had changed. But why would she? I was peripheral to her life. Background noise. She probably assumed I'd gone home from her party and gone on with my life, content with whatever scraps she'd thrown my way. But then, about 10 days after the party, my phone buzzed. A text message. From her. Mom, what's going on? You left early the other day. Don't be dramatic. I stared at that message. Don't be dramatic. That's what she thought this was. Drama. An overreaction. An old woman being too sensitive, too needy, too much. I almost responded. Almost typed out exactly what I'd heard, what I'd felt. Almost explained. But then I stopped myself. Why? Why did I owe her an explanation? Why did I need to justify my hurt to the person who caused it? I put the phone down. Didn't respond. Let the message sit there, unanswered. A few hours later, she called. The phone rang and rang. I watched it light up with her name. I let it go to voicemail. She didn't leave one. She tried again the next day. And the day after that. Still, I didn't answer. And with each call I ignored, I felt stronger. I felt more certain. And then the tone changed. The messages got sharper. Angrier. Mom, seriously. What is this about? If you're upset about something, use your words. This silent treatment is childish. Childish. I was being childish. Not her, with her cruel comments and her public humiliation of the woman who gave her life. Me. I was the problem for not accepting it quietly. The final message came a week later. If this is about what you think you heard, you need to grow up. You're being ridiculous. I'm not going to play these games with you. That did it. That message, with its air quotes around think, like I imagined it. Like I made it up. Like I was some confused old woman who couldn't trust her own ears anymore. I didn't respond to the message. I just blocked her number. Blocked her on my phone, blocked her email. Cut the cord completely. The silence that followed was strange at first. I kept expecting the phone to ring, expecting to see her name pop up. But it didn't. Couldn't. And after a few days, the silence stopped being strange and started being peaceful. But then something unexpected happened. My phone rang from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Grandma? My grandson. My sweet, sensitive 14-year-old grandson. The one who'd inherited my eyes and my tendency to feel too much. Michael, I said, and I could hear the tremor in my voice. Grandma, I heard what happened. At the party. I wasn't there, I was at a friend's house, but I heard Mom talking about it. About you leaving. About you being upset. And I heard what she said, Grandma. What she said about you. When she didn't know I was listening. Oh God. He'd heard. He knew. Michael. I'm so sorry, he said, and his voice cracked. I'm so sorry she said that. It's not true. You know that, right? You know it's not true? I sat down heavily on my couch. Sweetie. Can I see you? He asked. Can I come over? I don't want you to think we all feel that way. I don't want you to think I think that way. And just like that, I was crying. Really crying. Not the single, controlled tear from the party. Full, gasping sobs that I couldn't hold back. Because here was this child, this beautiful child, offering me exactly what I needed. Not from his mother. But from him. Genuine love. Genuine sorrow. Genuine connection. Yes, I managed. Yes, please come over. He showed up an hour later, having biked across town. He hugged me at the door, and I held him tight, this boy who was almost taller than me now. We sat on the couch and we talked. Really talked. About how he'd noticed his mom changing over the years, getting caught up in status and appearances. About how he'd noticed her treating me differently, like I was less important than her in-laws, less worthy of her time. About how wrong it felt, but he didn't know what to do about it. I'm moving, I told him. End of the month. I'm getting a smaller place. Starting over. Without Mom knowing, he asked. Your mother made it clear where I stand in her life, I said gently. I'm just respecting her wishes. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Can I still see you? After you move? Can I still visit? Always, I said. Michael, always. You are not your mother. You are yourself. And I love you exactly as you are. He hugged me again, and when he left, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. Not hoping that everything would be fixed. Not hoping that my daughter would suddenly change. But I hope that I haven't lost everything. That some connections were real. That some love was genuine. The weeks passed. I continued packing and preparing. David called to tell me all the documents were ready for signing. I went to his office and I signed every single page, initialed every change. My estate would now fund a scholarship for single mothers going back to school. My daughter wouldn't see a penny. A professional fiduciary would make all medical decisions if I became unable. My daughter would have no say. Everything was locked down, legal, final. Are you at peace with this? David asked as I signed the last page. I'm getting there, I said honestly. I'm getting there. Moving day was set for Saturday. I'd hired movers, sold or donated most of my furniture, packed everything that mattered into boxes that didn't fill nearly as much of the truck as I'd expected. 30 years in a house, and my life fits into maybe 20 boxes and a few pieces of furniture. It felt both sad and liberating. Friday afternoon, there was a knock at my door. Loud. Insistent. I looked through the peephole and there she was. My daughter. Face flushed, looking angry or panicked or both. I took a breath and opened the door. What the hell is going on? She demanded, pushing past me into the house. I just ran into Betty from your bridge club and she said you're moving? Moving? Without telling me? Why would I tell you? I asked calmly. You've made it abundantly clear you don't want me in your life. That's ridiculous. You're being ridiculous. I never said that. You said I'm too old to still be alive, I said, and I watched her face change. Watched recognition flicker across it. At your party. You said it and you laughed about it. With your husband. With your in-laws. You laughed about your mother being too old to be alive. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. You heard that? I heard it. I heard all of it. I heard you tell your husband I still think I belong in your life, like that's funny. Like I'm pathetic for wanting to be part of my own daughter's life. I heard everything, and then I walked into your party and sat there while nobody, not one single person, acknowledged my existence. Mom, I'm not finished, I said, and I heard the steel in my own voice. You have treated me like an embarrassment for years. Like I'm not good enough for your new life, your new family, your new status. You've erased me slowly, piece by piece, and I was too desperate for your love to see it. But I see it now. I see it perfectly clearly. You're twisting things, she said, but her voice was weak. You're making this into something it's not. I was venting. Everyone vents about their parents. It didn't mean anything. It meant everything, I said. It means that you see me as a burden. As someone who's lived too long. As someone who doesn't belong. And you know what? I'm not going to fight you on that anymore. I'm done fighting for space in your life. So what, you're just going to disappear? Move away and cut me off? That's your solution? You cut me off first, I said. I'm just making it official. I'm removing you from my will. You're no longer my power of attorney. You're not my emergency contact. You're not my beneficiary on anything. I've erased you from every legal document that connects us. And I blocked your number. This conversation we're having right now? This is a courtesy. This is me explaining something I don't owe you an explanation for. Her face went through a whole series of expressions. Shock. Anger. Disbelief. Then something that looked like panic. You can't do that. You can't just cut me out of your life. I'm your daughter. And you're too old to still be alive were your words about me, I said. I'm not punishing you. I'm protecting myself. I'm choosing myself for the first time in my entire relationship with you. I'm choosing dignity over degradation. You're being manipulated, she said desperately. Someone's gotten in your head. Convinced you to do this. This isn't you. You're not vengeful like this. This isn't vengeance, I said. Vengeance would require more energy than you're worth to me right now. This is self-preservation. This is me finally understanding that I taught you to be strong and independent, and somehow along the way, I forgot to be those things for myself. Mom, please. You erased me with your words, I said, and I could feel the tears threatening, but I held them back. With your laughter. With your neglect. Every time you chose your in-laws over me, every time you excluded me, every time you made me feel like I was too much or not enough or just plain inconvenient. You erased me first. I'm simply honoring what you already decided. I walked to the door and opened it. I need you to leave now. The movers are coming tomorrow and I have a lot to do. You're really doing this, she said, and she sounded small suddenly. Young. Like the little girl who used to need me. I really am, I said. She stood there for another moment, and I could see her struggling with something. Struggling with whether to fight or to leave. Whether to apologize or to defend herself. In the end, she did neither. She just walked out. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't say she was sorry. Just left. I closed the door. Not with a slam. Not with drama. Just a quiet click. And then I leaned against it and let myself cry. But these tears were different. They weren't tears of humiliation or pain. They were tears of release. Tears of grief, yes, but also tears of relief. I was free. Finally free. Moving day came. The movers were efficient and kind. They packed up the truck quickly, and by noon, my house was empty. I walked through each room one last time. The living room where I'd rocked my baby daughter to sleep. The kitchen where I'd made thousands of meals. The bedroom where I'd cried myself to sleep after my divorce. The backyard where I'd pushed her on the swing set that was long gone now. I left a note on the kitchen counter. Just a simple thank you to the house for sheltering us, for being home. It felt important somehow. And then I walked out, locked the door for the last time, and got in my car. I didn't look back. Not once. I just drove to my new place, to my new life. The apartment was everything I needed. Small, manageable, mine. The movers helped me get the furniture in place, and I spent the afternoon unpacking boxes, deciding where things should go. It felt like playing house, but in the best way. Like I was creating something new instead of maintaining something old and broken. That evening, I stood on my little balcony and looked out at the city lights. I'd made myself dinner. Just a simple pasta dish, but I'd set the table with a cloth napkin and poured myself a glass of wine. I'd eaten slowly, deliberately, tasting every bite. And then I'd come out here to watch the sunset. I bought a small herb garden for the balcony the next day. Basil, rosemary, thyme. Things I could grow, things I could nurture. Things that would grow back even when you cut them down. It felt symbolic, planting those herbs. Like I was planting myself too. Putting down roots in this new soil. I started reconnecting with old friends I'd lost touch with. Betty from the bridge club was thrilled when I called. We met for coffee and I told her everything. She held my hand and called my daughter names I won't repeat here, and somehow that helped. Having someone in my corner. Having someone who said, "You did the right thing." I joined a book club. Started taking morning walks in the park near my apartment. I discovered a little cafe that made the best scones I'd ever tasted. I created routines that were mine, that didn't involve waiting for anyone to call or visit or acknowledge me. I was living. Actually living. Not just existing in the margins of someone else's life. Michael visited every weekend. We'd cook together, or go see movies, or just sit and talk. He told me about school, about his friends, about the girl he liked but was too nervous to talk to. And I listened and gave advice and felt grateful that at least one relationship had survived intact. "Mom asks about you," he said one afternoon, about 6 weeks after I'd moved. "Does she?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. "She wants to know where you're living. If you're okay." She won't admit it, but I think she's scared. "Scared of what?" "That she really lost you," he said. "That this is permanent." I didn't say anything to that. Because I didn't know if it was permanent. I didn't know what I wanted anymore when it came to her. I just knew I needed space. I needed to remember who I was without her judgment, without her shame, without her cruelty. 3 months after I moved, a letter arrived at my P.O. box. Her handwriting on the envelope. I stared at it for a full 5 minutes before I opened it. The letter was 3 pages long. Handwritten, not typed. That surprised me. She'd taken the time to write it by hand. "Mom," it started. Not "Dear Mom." Just "Mom." I don't know how to start this. I've written this letter a dozen times and thrown it away. But Michael says you're doing well, that you seem happy, and that makes me realize how long it's been since I've seen you happy. How long it's been since I've made you happy. I've been thinking a lot about what I said. What you heard. And I can't take it back. I can't undo it. I wish I could tell you I didn't mean it, but the truth is, in that moment, I did mean it. Or at least some angry, bitter part of me meant it. The part that resents you for reminding me where I came from. For being proof that I wasn't born into this life I've built, that I had to claw my way here from poverty and struggle. I've spent so much energy trying to fit in with James's family, trying to prove I belong in their world, that I forgot who gave me the tools to climb in the first place. You did. You worked yourself half to death to give me opportunities. You sacrificed everything so I could have more. And I've repaid you by being ashamed of you. By treating you like you're an embarrassment. I don't know if I can fix this. I don't know if you even want me to try. Michael says you've blocked my number, that you've cut me out of your will, that you've erased me completely. And I guess I deserve that. I erased you first, like you said. But I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for the things I said. I'm sorry for the way I've treated you. I'm sorry for making you feel like you don't belong in my life when the truth is, there wouldn't be a life to belong to if it wasn't for you. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect you to let me back in. I just needed you to know that I see it now. I see what I've done. I see what I've become. And I hate it. I hate who I've turned into. I'm afraid it's too late. I'm afraid I've broken something that can't be fixed. And if that's true, I'll have to live with that. But I needed to tell you. I needed you to know that you were right. About all of it. I love you, Mom. I know I haven't shown it. I know I haven't said it. But I do. I love you. And I'm sorry I forgot how to show you that. Rita. I read the letter 3 times. And then I folded it carefully and put it in a drawer in my kitchen. Not hidden. Not thrown away. Just stored. For later. For when I figured out what I felt about it. Because the thing is, I didn't feel the rush of relief I thought I might feel. I didn't feel vindicated or victorious. I just felt sad. Sad that it took all of this for her to see me. Sad that my own daughter had to lose me completely before she understood my value. And I felt something else too. Something I wasn't proud of but was real. I felt angry that she thought sorry was enough. That a letter, however heartfelt, could erase years of humiliation and neglect. That she expected me to just fold because she'd finally acknowledged what she'd done. I wasn't ready to forgive her. I didn't know if I'd ever be ready. But I also wasn't ready to close the door permanently. So the letter stayed in the drawer. Waiting. Like I was waiting. For what, I didn't quite know yet. The seasons changed. Fall turned to winter. My little herb garden died back, and I planted winter pansies instead. They were tougher than they looked, those pansies. They could survive frost and cold and still bloom. I related to that. Michael kept visiting. He told me his mother asked about me every time he came home. Asked if I'd gotten her letter. Asked if I'd responded. Asked if I was ever going to talk to her again. He said she seemed different. Quieter. Sadder. Like she was grieving something. Are you ever going to answer her? He asked me one Saturday while we were making cookies together. Chocolate chip, his favorite. I don't know, I said honestly. Part of me wants to. Part of me wants to sit down with her and explain every single way she hurt me, make her really understand. But another part of me thinks, why? Why do I have to do the emotional labor of explaining my pain to the person who caused it? Why is it my job to make her feel better about making me feel terrible? I don't think she wants to feel better, Michael said. I think she just wants you to know she's sorry. I think she knows she doesn't deserve forgiveness. Then why apologize at all? Because you're her mom, he said simply. And she finally realized what that meant. What you did for her. What she threw away. I looked at this wise, empathetic 14-year-old, and I wondered how he'd turned out so good when his mother had lost her way so completely. But then I realized he turned out good because I'd been there too. In the early years, before Rita shut me out. I'd helped raise him. I'd taught him kindness, empathy, and respect. And those lessons stuck, even when his mother forgot them. I'm not ready yet, I told him. Maybe someday. But not yet. He nodded. That's fair. Christmas came. My first Christmas completely alone in over 50 years. Michael was spending it with his family, of course, and I told him that was exactly where he should be. I didn't want him torn between us. He was a child. This wasn't his burden to carry. I spent Christmas morning alone in my apartment. I'd gotten myself a small tree, decorated it with simple white lights and a few ornaments that meant something to me. I made myself breakfast. French toast, bacon, fresh orange juice. I opened the presents Michael had dropped off the day before. A beautiful scarf he'd picked out himself. A book I'd mentioned wanting to read. A framed photo of the two of us from his last visit, both of us laughing at something, both of us looking genuinely happy. I set the photo on my mantel and looked at it for a long time. This is what mattered. This connection. This real, honest love. Not the obligatory kind. Not the kind you had to beg for or earn. The kind that just was. That afternoon, my phone rang. Not my cell phone, but my landline. The one I'd gotten for the new apartment because I liked having a backup. The one whose number only a few people had. I picked it up. Mom? Rita's voice. Shaky. Small. Like she was 14 and calling me from a party where she didn't feel safe and needed me to come get her. How did you get this number? I asked. Michael, she admitted. He said he didn't think you'd mind if it was today. If it was Christmas. He said you might be lonely. I'm not lonely, I said. And I wasn't. I was alone, but I wasn't lonely. There's a difference. Oh, she said. That's good. Silence stretched between us. Uncomfortable. Full of everything that hadn't been said, that maybe couldn't be said. Did you get my letter? She asked finally. I did. And I read it, I said. Several times. Is there anything else? She asked. Any response? Anything? I thought about that. Thought about what I wanted to say. What I needed to say. And I realized the truth was complicated. Messy. Not clean or simple or easy. I appreciate the apology, I said slowly. I do. But Rita, an apology doesn't erase what happened. It doesn't undo the pain. You said I was too old to still be alive. You laughed about it. You've treated me like an embarrassment for years. And a letter, however sincere, doesn't fix that. I know, she whispered. I know it doesn't. But I don't know what else to do. I don't know how to fix this. Maybe you can't fix it, I said. Maybe some things, once broken, don't go back together the way they were before. Maybe the best we can hope for is to build something new. Something different. If we build anything at all. Do you want to? She asked. Build something new? I don't know, I said honestly. Right now, I'm building something for myself. A life that's mine. A life where I'm not waiting for scraps from people who don't value me. And I'm not ready to risk that yet. I'm not ready to let you back in just to have you hurt me again when I become inconvenient. I wouldn't. You would, I interrupted. Because you have. Multiple times. And I taught you that it was okay by always taking you back, by always making excuses for you, by always putting your feelings above my own dignity. I'm not doing that anymore. She was crying. I could hear it in her breathing. Part of me wanted to comfort her. That old instinct, the one that had ruled my life for so long. But I pushed it down. Her tears weren't my responsibility anymore. I'm going to go now, I said. But Rita? I don't hate you. I want you to know that. I don't hate you. I'm just protecting myself. And maybe someday, if you can prove that you've really changed, if you can show me through actions not words that you understand what you did and you've become someone different, maybe then we can talk about rebuilding. But not now. Not yet. Okay, she said. Okay. I understand. Merry Christmas, I said softly. Merry Christmas, Mom. I hung up the phone and stood there in my quiet apartment, and I felt okay. Not happy, not sad. Just okay. Which was more than I'd felt in a long time. The months continued to pass. Winter gave way to spring. I planted tomatoes and peppers on my balcony. I joined a watercolor painting class at the community center. I made friends with my neighbor, a widow named Patricia who was 85 and sharp as a tack. We'd have tea together twice a week and she'd tell me stories about her life, about her late husband, about the choices she'd made and the ones she regretted. The thing about getting old, she told me one afternoon, is you realize you spent too much of your life worrying about what other people thought of you. What other people needed from you. And not enough time thinking about what you needed. What made you happy? I'm figuring that out now, I said. Better late than never, I guess. Damn right, better late than never, she said, raising her teacup like a toast. You've got years left, Lucy. Good years. Don't waste them on people who don't appreciate you. Michael graduated middle school and started high school. I went to his graduation, sat in the back of the auditorium. Rita was there, of course, down in the front with her husband and his family. She looked back once, scanning the crowd, and I think she saw me. Our eyes met for just a second. She looked like she might wave, might acknowledge me, but then her mother-in-law said something to her and she turned back around. After the ceremony, Michael found me in the parking lot. Gave me a huge hug and thanked me for coming. Mom saw you, he said. She wanted to come say hi but she wasn't sure if you'd want her to. It wasn't the right time, I said. Today is about you, not about our drama. He smiled. I'm glad you came, Grandma. I wouldn't have missed it for the world. I drove home that evening and realized something. I'd spent hours at that graduation, in the same building as my daughter, and I hadn't felt anxious. Hadn't felt that desperate need to talk to her, to fix things, to make everything okay. I'd just felt neutral. Like she was someone I used to know very well but didn't anymore. And that was okay. A year passed since I'd moved. A full year. I'd been in my apartment for 12 months, living my own life, building my own routines, being my own person. It was my birthday, 73 years old, and Michael had insisted on taking me out to dinner. Just the two of us. We went to a nice Italian restaurant, and he gave me a gift he'd saved up for himself. A beautiful journal, leather-bound, with my initials embossed on the cover. For writing down your story, he said. You've lived so much, Grandma. You should write it down. Not for anyone else. Just for you. So you remember. I ran my fingers over the leather. That's very thoughtful, sweetheart. There's something else, he said. Mom asked me to give you something. I told her I would, but only if you said it was okay first. Is it okay? I tensed slightly. What is it? A letter. Another letter. But she said if you don't want to read it, I can throw it away. She just wanted the option to be there. I thought about it. About that first letter sitting in my kitchen drawer, still unresolved. About this year I'd spent healing, growing, becoming myself again. Could I handle another letter? Or would it set me back? I'll take it, I said finally. But I'm not promising I'll read it right away. He pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket and handed it to me. It felt heavier than the first one. More pages, maybe. More words. I put it in my purse and we finished dinner, talking about other things. His classes, his friends, the girl he'd finally worked up the courage to ask out. Good things. Simple things. The things that made life worth living. That night, alone in my apartment, I opened the letter. Mom, it began, like the last one. It's been a year since you moved. A year since we've really talked. Michael tells me you're doing well. He tells me you seem happy. Lighter. Free. And I'm glad. I'm glad you're happy, even if it's without me. I've been doing a lot of work this year. Therapy. Real, actual therapy. I'm trying to understand why I became the person I became. Why did I treat you the way I did? Why I was so desperate to erase where I came from that I erased the one person who made it possible for me to get anywhere at all. My therapist says I have a lot of internalized shame. That I projected all my feelings about being poor, about struggling, about not fitting in, onto you. Because you represented all of that. You were the evidence that I wasn't born into privilege. That I had to fight for everything. And instead of being proud of that, proud of us, I was ashamed. I'm ashamed of being ashamed. Does that make sense? I'm horrified by who I became. By the fact that I valued what my in-laws thought of me more than I valued you. By the fact that I was willing to sacrifice our relationship for the approval of people who, honestly, don't even really like me. They tolerate me because I married their son. But you loved me. Unconditionally. Always. And I threw that away. I can't change the past. I can't take back what I said or how I made you feel. But I can tell you that I'm changing. I'm working on it. I've set boundaries with James's family. I've stopped going to events where I feel like I have to perform, where I have to be someone I'm not. I've been reconnecting with old friends, the ones from before I got so caught up in status and appearances. I've been remembering who I used to be. Who you raised me to be. Someone kind. Someone strong. Someone who didn't need external validation to know her worth. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect anything from you anymore. But I wanted you to know that you were right. About everything. And I'm sorry it took losing you for me to figure that out. If you ever want to talk, want to meet for coffee, want to see if there's anything left to salvage between us, I'm here. I'll always be here. But if you don't, if this is where our story ends, I understand. I'll live with that. I'll have to. Thank you for everything you gave me. Thank you for loving me even when I made it impossible to love me. Thank you for being a better mother than I ever deserved and certainly a better mother than I've been a daughter. I love you. I'll always love you. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Rita. I read the letter twice. And then I set it down and I cried. But these tears were different from all the others. They weren't tears of pain or anger or even relief. They were tears of grief. Grief for what we'd lost. Grief for the years we'd wasted. Grief for the mother-daughter relationship that could have been but wasn't. But underneath the grief, I felt something else. Something small but real. Hope. Not hope that everything would go back to the way it was before. That was impossible and maybe not even desirable. But I hope that maybe, possibly, we could build something new. Something healthier. Something where I wasn't erased and she wasn't performing. Something real. I didn't respond to the letter right away. I let it sit, just like the first one. I let myself feel what I needed to feel. Process what I needed to process. And then, 2 weeks later, I picked up the phone. I called her. Not her cell phone, which I'd unblocked after Michael had told me months ago that she kept trying to call. But I'd never answered. Until now. Hello? Her voice was cautious. Like she couldn't believe it was really me. Rita, I said. It's me. Silence. And then, Mom. Hi. Thank you for calling. I didn't think you would. I almost didn't, I said honestly. But I read your letter. Both of your letters. And I think maybe we should talk. Really talk. Face to face. Yes, she said immediately. Yes. Whenever you want. Wherever you want. I'll come to you. There's a coffee shop near my apartment, I said. Do you know Rosemary's on 5th Street? I'll find it, she said. When? Saturday. 10 in the morning. I'll be there. Mom, I'll be there. Thank you. Thank you for giving me this chance. I'm not promising anything, I warned her. I'm just promising to listen. That's all I can give you right now. That's more than I deserve, she said quietly. I'll take it. Saturday came. I got to the coffee shop 15 minutes early, partly because I'm always early, partly because I needed to settle my nerves. I ordered a latte and sat at a table by the window, watching people walk by, trying to calm my racing heart. And then she was there. Walking through the door, looking nervous and younger than I remembered. She'd lost weight. There were circles under her eyes. She looked, frankly, like she hadn't been sleeping well. She saw me and her whole face changed. Relief, fear, hope, all mixed together. She walked over slowly, like she was afraid I'd bolt. Hi, she said softly. Hi, I replied. She sat down across from me, and for a long moment, we just looked at each other. Really looked. Mother and daughter. Strangers and intimates. Broken and maybe, possibly, beginning to heal. I don't know where to start, she said finally. Start with the truth, I said. That's all I've ever wanted from you. The truth. And she did. She told me everything. About how insecure she'd felt around James's family. About how she'd overcompensated by trying to erase her past. About how every time she saw me, I reminded her of things she wanted to forget. Not because there was anything wrong with me, but because there was something wrong with her. Something broken in her that couldn't accept where she came from. She told me about the therapy, about the work she was doing to unpack her shame and her need for external validation. About how she was trying to be a better person, not just a better daughter, but genuinely better. And I listened. I let her talk without interrupting, without defending myself, without explaining my side. I just listened. When she was done, when she'd said everything she needed to say, I spoke. I need you to understand something, I said. What you did, what you said, it broke something in me. Something fundamental. My trust in you. My belief that no matter what, you loved me. And I don't know if that can be repaired. I don't know if we can ever go back to what we were. I know, she whispered. But, I continued, I'm willing to try something new. Not mother and daughter the way we were. But two adults who are related, who have history, who are trying to build something healthier. I'm willing to try that. But there have to be boundaries. Rules. Anything, she said. Whatever you need. You don't get to treat me like a burden, I said. You don't get to be ashamed of me. If I'm not good enough for your in-laws, for your friends, for your life, then you don't get to have me in it. I won't be hidden away anymore. I won't be the secret you're embarrassed about. You won't be, she said firmly. I promise you won't be. I've already started changing that. I've told James and his family that the way they talked about you, the way I let them talk about you, was unacceptable. I've set boundaries. Good, I said. Second rule. You don't get automatic access to my life anymore. You want to see me, you ask. You want to know how I'm doing, you call and actually listen to the answer. You want to be part of my life, you put in the effort. Real effort. Not just when it's convenient for you. I can do that, she said. I want to do that. And third, I said, my voice softer now, you have to accept that I've changed too. I'm not the same mother I was before. The one who waited by the phone for you to call. The one who accepted scraps and called them love. I'm my own person now. I have my own life. And sometimes, that life won't revolve around you. And you have to be okay with that. I am okay with that, she said. Mom, I'm proud of that. Michael tells me about your new apartment, your friends, your painting class. You sound happy. You sound free. And I'm glad. Even if I'm the reason you needed to be free in the first place. We sat there for another hour, talking. Not solving everything. Not fixing everything. But starting. Starting to build something new. Something that might, eventually, look like a relationship. A different one than before, but maybe a better one. A healthier one. When we left the coffee shop, she asked if she could hug me. I hesitated, but then I said yes. And when she wrapped her arms around me, I let myself hug her back. Not with the desperate love of before. But with something quieter. Something more careful. Something that acknowledged the pain but left room for possibility. That was 6 months ago. Since then, we've seen each other once a month. Always in public places. Always with clear start and end times. We're taking it slow. Building trust brick by careful brick. She's met some of my new friends. She's seen my apartment. She's asked about my life and actually listened to the answers. She's apologized, multiple times, in multiple ways. Not just with words but with actions. With respect. With effort. Is it perfect? No. Do I trust her completely? Not yet. Maybe not ever. But it's something. It's more than I thought we'd have. And for now, that's enough. Michael is thriving. He's doing well in school, happy with his girlfriend, talking about college already even though he's only 15. He tells me he's proud of both of us. Proud of me for standing up for myself. Proud of his mother for doing the work to change. As for me? I'm 73 years old. And you know what? I'm not too old to still be alive. I'm not too old to start over. I'm not too old to demand respect. I'm not too old to choose myself. I'm Lucy Elliott. I raised a daughter alone. I survived abuse and poverty and heartbreak. I rebuilt my life from nothing more than once. And I did it again at 72. They asked why I was still alive. Here's my answer: to remember my name. To reclaim my dignity. To live without begging for a seat at anyone's table. To prove that even when you're old, even when you're dismissed, even when your own child erases you, you can erase them right back. Not out of hate. Out of love. Love for yourself. I didn't erase my daughter out of revenge. I erased her because she erased me first. And in doing so, I found myself again. The self I'd lost somewhere along the way while I was busy being someone's mother, someone's burden, someone's embarrassment. I'm Lucy. And I'm still here. Still alive. Still worthy. Still learning. Still growing. And that is enough.